Hi everyone, bienvenue à Bruxelles une fois. This is my Belgian accent. Making the most of being in Brussels instead of Paris for once. Thanks so much to all our panelists for joining. So the title of this panel is Getting Ready for the On-Chain Economy. We have Jan, Head of Partnerships at SAFE. We have Chintan, the Senior Director of Engineering and Head of Coinbase Wallet. We have Dima, Co-founder and CTO of Fordefi. And we have Kevin Lepsoe, the CEO of ETHGas, one of his two projects, I understand. So we'll hear about those. So just to get started, if you could each please give me give the crowd a quick intro on sort of who you are and what you're working on, and then we'll move on to a bunch of questions. Maybe Jan, you can start.
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, Jan, work at SAFE. SAFE is something that some of you might think about when you think kind of like multi-sig, SAFE Wallet, which is definitely a key part of the whole thing, but it's also much more with our smart contracts and SAFE Core as a tech stack on which you can build that many do, from the likes of a WorldCoin to DeFi projects like Brahma and so on and so forth.
Thanks, Dima.
Hi, thanks for organizing. I'm happy to be here. I'm Dima. I'm co-founder and CTO at Fordefi. We're an institutional MPC wallet. We provide our customers, who are different kind of institutions, funds, trading firms, Web3 companies, with a secure self-custody way to hold their assets and interact with DeFi protocols across different types of chains securely and conveniently.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Chintan, Head of Eng for Coinbase Wallet. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me. So I think hopefully folks have heard of Coinbase. We have a centralized exchange. We also build wallets. We have our mobile product. It's a self-custody EOA wallet. And little fun fact, it supports Bitcoin, it supports Solana, it supports a bunch of EVM chains. We sponsor all the gas. But we also launched recently a smart wallet. So account abstracted, go to smart-wallet.xyz, it uses passkeys, it's super easy onboarding. And that's really like why we're building this. If we want adoption, we need to take away the friction for the end user.
Thanks.
All right. Hi, I'm Kevin. Thank you for having me here, and happy to be on the same panel as you guys. Founder of ETHGas. Basically, it's the trading, market making, and insights and analytics for gas. Currently on Ethereum, but potentially other chains in the future.
Amazing. Thanks everyone. So the premise of this panel is that over time, more and more of the sort of the value flow, whether it's financial assets or other types of data, I guess, will move on-chain. Coinbase have this phrasing, which I think is pretty evocative, which is like on-chain is the new online, right?
Without any hyphens.
Without any hyphens, yeah, and to rip off this paper. And so, as more and more of these assets are online, the idea is sort of like more and more end users, businesses start to actually interact themselves on chain rather than being intermediated through centralized players. And so I guess what I'd love to do in this panel is to explore like how do we get towards this vision where more and more actors in the ecosystem are actually directly interfacing with things on chain. And sort of, I guess part of that is more and more self-custody, right? Or at least signing things themselves. And I thought we could explore two themes. The first is around like the UX of getting there. And kind of related to that is the security implications of these changing UX. And then the other theme would be which use cases does this make most sense for, and tied to the use cases, I think, are like geographies where we see these use cases the most. So maybe let's start with the UX side. So what do you guys think are the important enablers in terms of UX to get to this world where there's fewer like centralized intermediaries in crypto? I thought maybe we could go with either SAFE or Coinbase perspective on this, as you guys, I think, are pioneering a lot of this stuff.
Kick it off.
Yeah. I mean, I think the challenge, to phrase it a bit differently, is achieving somewhat of a Web2-like user experience while not losing the properties of Web3. And here, I would say there's kind of like three things that come directly to mind. One is kind of like, how do you interact with the account? And there, I think, especially you guys are also pushing this quite a bit with passkeys really being one of the ways that luckily all of big tech is pushing for as well. So you have kind of like the whole Web 2 economy, all of these large players pushing for a way to interact with an application, and us being able to use this thanks to smart accounts as well as a way to actually sign messages. So I think that is the first part. The second part for me is kind of like when I actually logged into something or signed something, I'm now taking part in this application. How's the behavior of the account there? And the like of, I actually don't have to log into Amazon every time I do something. Actually, I only log in once, I start buying stuff, and maybe at the end I do something again, if at all. This is something that, for me, kind of like the session key type thing is what comes to play. Ideally, it's something that actually takes a bit of time and only becomes relevant where I have to re-sign something if, say, a 2FA type situation would happen in Web 2. And the last one for me is kind of like, oops, I forgot the password. And that is something that is major frustration and actually major issue when it comes to losing funds right now in Web 3, and something that can actually be properly solved with recovery solutions through smart accounts as well, where you can either build your own with kind of like social recovery or find other players that you trust, be that your lawyer, be that actually a bank. So we work, for example, with Swiss Bank for this, with Signum, be that some other player. It might even be, in a gaming scenario, just a game developer where you're like, okay, I trust them that they could just rotate the keys out, and actually it feels like, oops, I forgot the password, let me reset. I think those would be kind of like the three that come to mind immediately. I'm not sure something that comes to mind for you.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I agree. Like, make signing easier, make recovery easier, and meet the user where they are at Web 2. I think from a completely opposite end of the lens, if we want more users to come on chain, we need to just build use cases that are fun and interesting and not like smashing crypto right into their face on step one. Like, hey, you don't have gas? No, take away gas. Like, sponsor it all, right? Oh, I need a seed phrase, I need a wallet. No, just stop with app downloads. Like, just have the smart wallet, let it run in mobile web. And I'm personally a big believer of just real world use cases and chipping away at that over and over and over again until it really, truly feels magical. Fun anecdote from today, we're running this base cafe. Real cafe, we ran it last year at EthCC in Paris, running it here again. I think at crypto conferences, we should be using crypto. And so you can go up to this cafe, order coffee, and do tap to pay. And Jeremy Allaire from Circle came and did it today. He was just like, this is awesome, right? And so you just abstract everything away and let people get the job done. But fundamentally, the experience should be better because of the properties of crypto and blockchain.
And just, I'm curious, when you tap to pay, what happens in the background in a nutshell here?
So in a nutshell, it's, think of it like a merchant, right? Any coffee shop you walk into, there's some POS, right? So we have an iPad, or you can do it on an Android phone. Emits a signal, right? An NFC signal. The schema is a transaction, right? Just packaged up. And then the receiver just interprets it. And you see a transaction simulation pop up on the device. Right? And it says, oh, great, you were about to have 5 USDC leave your wallet. Gas is 0, we sponsor it. Hit confirm sign.
That's awesome.
And so it's one tap.
Yeah, very nice. And did you switch out the croissant for the waffles in the process?
I'll
go check.
We should do an A/B test. I hear there are different types of waffles here too.
Probably.
Right?
Yeah.
Belgian waffles, Liège waffles, I don't know. Is this right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Any Belgian? Cool. And so I wanted to bring in Dima a bit to talk about maybe some of the more kind of institutional, I guess, feature sets in terms of utility, like UX as well, that you guys have pioneered, and what prompted you to build towards these.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in general, institutions also care about good UX. So I think like a lot of the things are common. I think institutional users don't enjoy like getting gas to their wallet to pay for it. I think few people, I mean, some people do, but it's a bit of a a hobby. I think that obviously, I think institutions, especially like the more crypto native ones, are going to be more power users. So they will want to have like more control to get like more understanding of the details what they do. But they will also have like stronger security requirements. So like things transaction simulation is always key also for institutions that doing a $1 million transaction, and they might be as susceptible to like a front-end hack as the retail users, even though they're obviously more pro. So these things are super important, and I think like some of them are actually in an institutional setting where there's more than one user involved in the transaction, and so maybe the person who is doing the transaction is kind of has the most context, they kind of can double check themselves, but their manager who needs to approve that transaction on the commute has so little context, so surfacing the right UX to everyone and kind of allowing you to set security controls is something super important. I also want to say just one thing on the UX side. I think like fundamentally it's a question of like showing the users the thing they care about and not showing them things they don't care about. And like some things like few people will care about, like transaction fees and those kind of stuff. While other stuff are, I would say, a little bit application dependent. So I think you have some of those crypto applications which are like only crypto and like as a backbone, but it's like a gaming application. Those users might not even care about what chain there are. Whereas if you look at maybe more financial applications or like the more speculative aspects of crypto, then those users will care about more aspects, and you need to kind of make this decision on the application layer.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you. And Kevin, we touched a bit on the gas side. I mean, I think we all
It's agree. A recurring theme with wallets, yeah.
Yeah,
it's a thing.
Yeah. And so can you maybe explain a bit how you guys are helping solve the UX issues around gas?
Sure. So there's, well, maybe a quick background, I think, on the gas, on the evolving or nascent gas markets, and then maybe as it relates to wallets. So there's probably two parts of the market. One is the just simply gas trading, so trading like the base fee. I can kind of go long, short, and kind of hedge the overall price of gas. The other part of it is and that's like a derivative I don't know if that's the right word, but potentially, or maybe not. But then in the physical delivery part of the world, pre-confirmations. And so in this part of the world, I'm going to buy a certain amount of block space in the first block or the fifth block, and I'm going to get guaranteed delivery for that specific block. And what that means is that I can when that block comes to now, I am guaranteed I can put kind of whatever I want into the gas units that I've bought. An extension of that is also kind of, so on the one hand, if I'm like a retail person, a retail trader, or just individual, I want to buy an NFT, then I kind of get like guaranteed to get delivery of that NFT in that block. However, again, there's multiple players within that block. There might be 100 people trying to get that same NFT. So the next element of the pre-confirmations or within the gas market is ordering transactions within the block. And so I could potentially say, I'm going to buy allocation or block space in a certain block, but I want to be the first transaction to basically guarantee me delivery of this NFT. And so kind of coming back to the wallet side of it, there's probably, there's a number of angles, but one is simply just like, if you're going to sponsor gas, like how would you sponsor it? I think on like the base chain, maybe it's a separate approach, but let's say like Ethereum, where gas prices are much higher, you could potentially like abstract gas away from the user experience, but how do you hedge yourself? How do you cover that cost? And so that's one element where maybe we just remove it from the wallet altogether. We take fees somewhere else within the wallet, and we hedge it on the back ourselves, or we hire a professional kind of gas manager to do that. Separately, maybe you want to kind of like have a physical representation of gas. So what I mean by that is you can enable users to buy a certain number of gas units or maybe a certain number of transactions, right? I can buy 5 transactions and not care about the price of gas. That's possible too. And that's just analogous to a car in a gas tank where you have 100 liters or 50 liters of gas and it just stays there until you've used it. And then I think just the final element there is coming to the pre-confirmations and basically like, is there a need now or maybe in the future where we want to enable our users to get like guaranteed delivery in this block no matter what, or a step further, guaranteed delivery of this asset at a certain price in this block. And I think that's interesting. It's an evolving space, but we'd like to kind of enable it so that the rest of the ecosystem can work on top of this dynamic.
Thanks a lot. And would you say in terms of like distribution, you guys are partnering with like wallets and others to bring these functionalities to end users?
It's, well, gas is kind of everyone in some sense, right? So you'd have like retail people just trading gas because it's super volatile, right? But then, how do they interface with an on-chain world? And so of course you'd have wallets, but at the same rate, you have validators or stakers who want to, maximize their return for their clients, right? Or maybe they want to stabilize returns. So it is a crypto native commodity, but it touches everyone in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
I'd say it's largely B2B though. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Cool. Awesome. So I thought maybe now we could switch to like the second theme around use cases. So I think we're all in agreement that we as an industry we need to move beyond this speculative use cases. Maybe other than buying a waffle, which I do plan on doing. What are some other use cases you guys are seeing that you're excited about, and are there particular geographies where you see these use cases take off? This can be for anyone who feels inspired.
I think one that comes to mind is just remittances, right? Cross-border payments, global payments. Obviously, there are countries, right, like Argentina, Venezuela, Turkey, hyperinflation, and we all know that sending wires and remittances costs money, takes time, intermediaries, and by the time it arrives and settles, maybe that local currency is fluctuated like 5, 10, 20%. So it's obvious with blockchain to this audience, like cross-border remittances is a very clear and compelling use case, right? But one of the challenges from a use case and UX perspective is like, it's very simple in today's world to send money to someone else's account. You already know that other person's account. You've done it a few times. You went through some hoops in the beginning, but you kind of have your system. How do you leapfrog someone from something they're very comfortable with and they understand very clearly? How do you accelerate them to, look, just send it like a text message, right? And so that's one lens we actually took within Coinbase Wallet is you can send money to anyone in the world using a link. It's self-custodial. You don't need a wallet on the other side. They click the link and they'll download the wallet and it claims. And with Smart Wallet, we're even going to get rid of the app requirement too, the download the app requirement. So then it becomes something where you're using the properties of blockchain and the benefits, solving that cross-border problem, but brought it into a UX of something like WhatsApp, where everyone knows how to use it. And boom.
And they don't even have to know it's on rail. They don't even
exactly. They don't need to know the chain. The gas it's all gasless anyways. And then it just feels like this is easy.
Makes sense. Anyone else have use cases they're excited about? I definitely agree with this one. Yeah.
I think we see a lot of activity on tokenization of various real-world assets, on securities and those kind of stuff. And I think this is also can make those assets accessible to a wider audience globally and make it easier to interact. And I think that's people that could then build additional DeFi products on top of it, which also sounds exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree there as well. Because, for example, if you look at like money market funds, they're not accessible to most of the world, but they're a great, savings vehicle actually. And I think tokenized money market funds is one of many asset classes that are booming right now on chain, and I think that's great to see. Yeah.
If I might add one comment, so I might shill my other company there, Infinity Exchange. It's basically like a very, it's a hybrid, like a DYDX for lending and borrowing. But basically it's introducing a yield curve based on kind of more TradFi principles as opposed to DeFi-centric concepts around risk. But in that case there, it's basically, it's not just money market funds, but I can basically lock into returns. Right, so for those people who are like ETH staking, for example, it's a floating rate, right? It's volatile, whether it's good or bad. But what if I just want to lock into a fixed ETH rate for the next year, like guaranteed, right? So I think that comes into play once you have more tokens in your wallet, and you don't want to speculate too much. You just kind of want I need to save for my child's education or whatever it might be, and then alongside that you get into the other side, which is mortgages and debt. Right, so if you have, anyway, chat about that later maybe.
Yeah, thanks. Cool. So I have kind of two last questions. Like the first one is around like prediction. I'd love to ask you each prediction. So I think as you guys are all working towards improving the UX and getting basically more, I believe one aspect of it should be more wallets on chain, right, that are active, right, because there will be fewer centralized intermediaries over time. Right now, according to one source I found, there's about 500,000 daily active addresses on ETH L1 and 1.5 million on L2s, daily actives. Let's say in a year or like 3 years, where do you think we'll be on these numbers? It's a tough one, and we can come back here or go to Paris and check up on who was closest. Croissant is on me for that.
Not sure yet on the numbers, and not sure if it's something we can predict, especially when it comes to the balance between L1 and L2, because over the course of the next, well, maybe year, there it's a bit more visible. Over the course of 3 years, it definitely also depends a lot on what role should the L1 play and what role should the L2 play in the Ethereum ecosystem, and therefore I could very much see that the number goes actually quite massively down on the L1 side when it comes to daily active accounts, but the L2 side goes up a lot. I guess that's for us to kind of like see how this evolves. I know actually on the weekend there were quite a few discussions around this, and how that space evolves is difficult. If we see very large jumps, then it will be accredited to, I think, what you said, and that is kind of like this 1-2 really, really good applications. From a very biased view, the team that comes to mind is the WorldCoin team on our end. They build on top of Safe. They're by far the team that has created the most Safes so far. The users don't know, and I would assume when it comes to kind of like what we just discussed when it comes to UX, this is the most abstracted version of a Web3 experience right now out there. And they or someone like them that kind of like combine parts of, be that the social and identity part as well as the financial part of interacting with others financially, I could very much see playing such a role, and then kind of like pushing this number.
Numbers can 10x.
Yeah. To give you some kind of number for this, I would say in 12 months, 20% up on Ethereum, 40% up on L2s.
Nice.
I think it's actually an interesting question to think about, like what are actually the right metrics in the sense of how to correctly measure the value that's created, or maybe even the value that's captured. Because let's say in a world where gas fees are zero, what does it even mean that there is another transaction or even like more volume in a transaction if you can kind of loop that around. So I think like I think in this sense like maybe the amount of gas fees charged is in some sense what the value gets captured by the blockchain, which is some kind of approximation of the value created. So I mean that's why I feel like it's a little bit of tricky talk about like comparing volumes of L2s and L1 because if transactions are free, is it even a good metric? So I don't know the answer. I just think it's kind of even coming up with the right metrics is something interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. My prediction is up and to the right, as steep as we can all get it collectively. I do think there will be a mix shift away from L1s. Like honestly, like I think we should take a mindset, like why does any net new person to crypto, like a normie, why should they ever have to interact with an L1, right? Get them on an L2, things are cheap, they're fast, they work, let's go, right? So I think there will be a shift there. And that's not to say there won't be L1 use cases. Of course there will be. Of course there will be. But that may not be the first onboarding experience for that next 100 million user base, right? I also think like metrics that are useful, there's a lot of farming activity we know, right? That's a use case, fine. But I think use cases that come in the intersection of social plus creator economy, like that's going to be nice. That's going to be compelling for just a generation of people who are on Instagram, TikTok, social, and they will want to create value as one metric. So we should be measuring the creation of value. How many net new people are going from 0 wallets to non-zero wallets, but without funding it, where someone else is actually giving them earnings, not farming. And 2, we should measure the movement of value, right? So if I have an app where I can just seamlessly onboard, post a picture, and my friends can collect it, and I earn some USDC or ETH or whatever it is, that's great. That's simple, and that's like something I'm down to do every day.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess Friendtech was a fun like kind of proto
Friendtech
example.
was a really interesting experiment of
that.
buying, keys or shares of your friends. I think that's evolving to, Warpcast and Farcaster protocol is doing some really interesting stuff. Frames are a good thing where you're just making these simple open graph type of experiences. MoshiCam, new PWA. It's like built using Smart Wallet, Coinbase Smart Wallet. It's a PWA, Moshi.cam. You go, simple onboarding, snap a photo from your camera, and put it on chain, and then your friends can collect it, and you just start seeing like money come in. Like, that's easy. And there's no crypto forced on you. It's just like, oh, cool, take a picture, cool, I can get some earnings. Like, that's really nice. So hope we see just more and more of that.
Yep.
That's a bet I will take, that none of the social stuff will take off.
Oh, okay.
I love this. Is the moderator's dream, a panel.
That's good.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just not, there's lots of like attempts. I think it's very hard to bootstrap. You saw that even like, even when in the example of threads, there was so much, like momentum and possible opportunities for a giant with a lot of experience to take. And you could say, maybe you need like more innovation coming from below, but I think it's still, I don't know, I think the use case is still not strong enough.
I agree with that. I agree that I think start with trading and investing, payments, and then the more like bigger bets are around social creator economy.
But then again, most of DeFi happens on L1. Do you really think that happens in 1 year time, that it moves?
Don't know.
Well, a lot of DeFi volumes, there's pretty good DeFi volume going to L2s.
But if you look at, like, L1 is by far the biggest.
Yeah.
By a long shot, at least what we see.
Is it the biggest because the potential opportunity is the highest, or that there's the most amount of farming available? Are we still waiting for more compelling use cases on L2? Like,
I would
what do
say
you
that
think the
farming
reason-
is bigger on L2s.
Because they're net new right now?
Yeah, they're more incentive.
Yeah.
The projects
More funny
are pushing
points to
incentive.
find.
Yeah.
More funny points.
Just, I was going to add one point there. Is I think, to your point, like I think crypto really hasn't found the product market fit beyond, there's the kind of, you have your stablecoin use case and remittances, and then you have speculation, and then you have like Filecoin. Like at the technology layer, there's some interesting stuff, right? But, beyond that, I'm not sure how it's really evolved much, even recently over the last couple of years. And so I would love it to be kind of up and to the right, but I don't know how that will happen unless on the social layer, away from kind of gamified social, perhaps. It's more like the Telegram Ton type of approaches. People who have like captive networks, and so when you see like Telegram guys coming online, and basically they're whether it's their own L1 or L2, or like Reddit, or I have a friend who runs 9gag, if you guys know that, right? And they would have 200 million monthlies.
Yeah. But that's all I think falls under the speculation and gambling in disguise.
Well, not necessarily, right? Well, 9gag stuff perhaps, right? But it's just more that when you can onboard those users into either like an app-specific chain or some other chain, then at least you can get into like the payments part, right? Yeah. So your point where you just send someone a link and then they don't even really know what they're like, they don't even know like what wallet, what chain, and they just know they're getting a transfer of money. Then I think when you combine those two, then that's when we get from the 500,000 on L1, 1.5 on L2, to all of a sudden, like, boom, 10 million people are connected. They may not know, but they're connected. And now, whether they know or not, their life will be enhanced that little bit with a more seamless experience.
Yep. That makes sense. And I think like there's the current use cases, right, the kind of admittedly more financial, will cause an increase because more and more people understand you need to use non-custodial technology, like even the funds, like the investors. But I think to get like the mega change, the step change in adoption, it would have to come from these more kind of consumer-centric.
For sure. And even in the financial context, we're still just scratching the surface, right? Crypto is like trades like equities or FX, right? But you look at like the fixed income world, which is 10 times larger, right? And so once you get that, and you're doing mortgage payments, and you're getting your salary payments, then if we can get all that, right, then it's magnitudes larger than what it is, users and volumes.
Yeah. Nice. I think we should wrap up here. Maybe we have time for 1 or 2 questions, but I know we've been running a bit late, so I want to. Charles Guillemet, CTO of Ledger, is up next. I don't want to make him wait too long. Do we have any questions from the audience?
From a UX perspective, regarding wallets, you were talking about RWA products. How do you deal with the KYC barrier? How do you integrate this aspect in your products?
So I can maybe answer that. So I think we're working with several customers who kind of build those kind of products. So what I can see from what they're doing is that a lot of it is kind of handled still off-chain, I would say. So on the front ends, the way that people would sign up to the app and do it, I think we're definitely seeing there's some interest and there's some standards to bring more of the compliance layer to be on-chain as well. And I think
DID, a decentralized ID as well, integrated.
I think that could. I think this would definitely grow, but I think I would say right now it's still primarily handled off-chain.
Okay. Yeah. One approach we take for something that needs to have some type of KYC, however it's defined. Coinbase.com has a massive number of KYC'd individuals. So one example is like Coinbase attestations, where someone can attest to the KYC, bring it into that attestation into the self-custody wallet, and then use it for the different activities that they're doing.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you guys. You told a lot about how to adopt and create features for next 1 billion users and a lot of things you discussed. But what about security? Because what's Coinbase Smart Wallet did, it's like amazing pace case about like how to use your face. But I was like very wondering, like we spent like hours to check like it's a security really, but but some our friends hackers, they told okay, but I can do your face if I know that you have a Coinbase Smart Wallet, I can AI, anything like, to use some feature things and to create your wallet, and I can log in. And like, oh, shit. Yeah. So what about like security and all the things that help us to onboard next billion of users, but how to protect them? Because, like I also like wondered of mini apps, Telegram, maybe you heard, and maybe I thought the next wallet will be not taping, but wallet. But, like then also a security team told, okay, but storage of Telegram, and it's very easy to hack your private keys from mini app, from Telegram, and fucking shit, like, okay, so what about security and like, can you share any thoughts about this? Thank you.
I mean, it's partially in the name. No, I mean, we take security extremely seriously. And for us, I think it actually, to a degree, comes back to the roots for us. We started as a multisig and actually making use of this and using similar logics. Like, it's not new that you could get hacked. It's not new that you should not just have one single way of doing something if something is of high value, right? Why do we think that 2FA is suddenly not applicable anymore? It's actually very helpful. How does that 2FA look like? Do I maybe want to actually add additional parties to this, which can take care of it if something very highly secure happens, where I'm like, okay, I do want to make sure that a third trusted party is involved in one way or another. So I think that is definitely kind of like fundamentally already there. And where simply those that build the applications need to consider, okay, which level makes the most sense. I think passkeys have an amazing opportunity for convenience. But I do think that in the long run, where the passkey and kind of like, or an SSO login gets you onboarded, there's always a maturity path that you have in any other financial application as well.
So like additional checks, for example, thresholds and...
Yeah, for sure. And you can do that already. Like it's live if you go to app.safe.global. Like you will find the path to do this in quite a sophisticated user interface. Now we have to bring it into a user interface that the likes of a Coinbase account has, or the types of teams that also build user interfaces on Safe.
Yeah, very like security first and foremost, always, right? And the thing about passkeys, or for example, Face ID, right? Even in a non-smart wallet scenario, we still use Face ID, for example, to unlock our phone. So it's not necessarily specific to a smart wallet passkey. It's just, there's always this inherent trade-off between UX, like simplicity, versus friction, i.e. security, right? And I think part of it also is just educating users, like where on the spectrum their bag should sit, right? Like smart wallet, maybe a couple $100, use it for day-to-day activities, right? And then as you progress to more and more bags, you'll go to cold storage, much higher friction. But the nice thing about also smart contract-based wallets is you can add arbitrary rules or policies like multi-sig, social recovery, multiple signers, thresholds, spend limits, etc. So I think a lot of that comes down to, we know the technology is there, what it's capable of. How do we present this back to the user in a way that is understandable to them and that they use it effectively, right? Because security is always a rat race. You always have to stay ahead. So there's no one like silver bullet. It's really teaching the user what self-custody means and that they gotta actually take some extra steps to like ensure things work the way they want it to.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Thanks so much to our panelists, and thanks everyone for coming. Thank you for having us.